Alright, sick. Let's go. Guess I want to keep all of this as general as I can. I just want to what the fuck was he saying? Oh yeah, I'm just picking these characters for example's sake. Picking Sudhira because like I'm the most familiar with her. Most thought into her. So like about as concise as I can get it.
Ready. Fight.
Alright, first of all, let's do a couple of things. Oh shit, my cable. Alright, let's do a couple of things real quick. Let's go to Shadow Meter and put that bitch to let's put it to infinite. Now let's put attack data on and then put this light on. Off. Yeah. I might just turn off attack data for now, actually, because that's pretty cumbersome. I'm a bit quiet. Do I just need to speak up? Let me know if I'm still quiet, and then I'll just, like, turn down the game audio, and, then you can just jack up your volume, if that's alright. So, I'm just gonna keep talking and update me as soon as you know. I adjusted just my mic a little bit. That's compensated. Excuse me. Because I don't want to I don't want to start talking about shit and then like realize halfway through I'm still too quiet, you know? But I did just wake up, so I'm probably a bit groggy. Which is also probably what's making it too quiet. Better? Sick. Alright. I'm gonna set him to block first, actually. Alright. So, like, I feel like I wanted to make this Twitch stream talking about offense and neutral in sort of an offensive manner. Because I've been watching, like, MMA recently. Like, just random MMA clips and, like, videos of Mike Tyson boxing. And, I was, like, thinking about how, like, comparable MMA is to fighting games. You know, because it really is. It's like, when you watch, like, an MMA professional talking about how they approach things and, like, their strategy and why they do certain things, you're like, dude, this is just a fucking fighting game. Like, it's so real when they're talking about, like, yeah, and I over-exaggerate my right hook so that I can bait them into blocking high, and then I go for a liver kick. I'm like, dude, that's just empty jump low. Like, that's just straight up empty jump low, but in real life. Like, it's so comparable. And because it's so comparable, I was thinking, I'm like, you know, I don't think if I want to improve, I don't think I'm going to be looking at other fighting game players from now on. I think I'm just going to look at professional, like, real life fighters. and taking their strategies and trying to apply them to fighting games. Because it makes sense, you have so much more material to pull from then, you know? Like, fighting games have only been around for a small amount of time, but fighting has been around since humans existed, you know? So, like, it's been thought about more, and there's more things like, you know, you look at fucking, like, Aikido, which is, like, controversial in that it's not, as a whole anyway, effective in MMA, but, like, elements of it are effective, you know? And, like, shit like that. Whereas in fighting games, there's no, like, styles to pull from, you know? Everyone just sort of plays the game. There's no, like, categories for anything. Anyway, so I've been watching that, and I was, like, really thinking about how to better approach offense and how I currently approach offense and neutral. And when I say neutral, I sort of mean at, like, this range, you know? Like, when you can actually walk in and walk out, like a footsie's type of neutral almost. Because, like, if I'm playing defensive neutral, a lot of the times, I'm just straight, like, running away and, like, trying to check people's offensive movement. And I'm not really trying to bait them into anything. It's just sort of a less engaging neutral, which isn't to say it isn't effective. It's just not what I'm currently thinking about, and it's not that interesting for discussion. Because it's literally like, it's almost exclusively reading movement. Anyway. Excuse me. So, like, one of the things... I'm a bit hoarse. I'm gonna take a drink of this coffee before I keep talking. Damn, that's good. So one of the things I was thinking about is how other people approach offense and why I think it's weird. And it's not exclusively for Killer Instinct, it's for all fighting games. So, a lot of people will do shit like this, right? They're like, okay, you know, like, heavy normal, safe linker. Even if you do, like, you know, like, heavy kick, it goes pretty far for Sadira. And it's effective in this matchup because Jago doesn't have, like, crazy oppressive normals. His heavy punch and, like, wind kick and, like, forward heavy kick are solid at this range, right? No one's gonna deny that. But, like, they're not solid enough where it makes heavy kick a bad option. So, like, people will do this, right? And they're like, why do people do that? Well, because A, right, this goes far, great. B, on hit, it gives you a full combo. Let me just, for the sake of whatever. There we go. It gives you a full combo, right? You do this whole thing, and then you get the knockdown, and then you run offense, right? You get the safe jump or whatever you want. Let's go back to block off. But I don't... The downside to it is that you're negative. And, like, it's not that big of a deal in this example, because, like, you're negative, but Jago can't... You're not in any super immediate threat. You know, like, you can backdash, and it's like, unless Jago does wind kick here, or, like, a fireball or something specifically to catch your backdash, like, you're gonna be fine. But I still think that that is, in a way, suboptimal. Because you essentially engage in neutral in a position where, after your turn is done, and your turn isn't really that extended, there's no mix-up here or anything, it's just a check. But after your turn is done, then you have to play some degree of defense. You're still negative. Let's turn on attack data just to get some sort of number. So you're -5, which I believe is technically punishable by some attacks. But for all intensive purposes, let's say it's safe, because there's not many characters who can punish that, as far as I know. Because it's so far, it's outside of your jab range, right? So you still have to play defense by, like, a substantial amount. And so you're essentially you're trying to do this offensive neutral move, right? Which is to, like, use this to stop them from walking forward, or a whiff punish. It's just a check, right? It's like, so you're trying to use an offensive neutral position, but then immediately sacrificing it, and then you're put on defense. You know, like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So it's like, what I think you should do instead, if we're using this example, is just a hit confirm, stand heavy kick. Like, just raw. Or don't use it. Excuse me. Now, on paper, excuse me, you might think that's, like, not that big of a deal, because, like, you're like, oh, look at, man, my voice is so hoarse right now. You might look at stand heavy kick and you're like, alright, stand heavy kick, -6 on block, that's even worse than this. But it's like, there's almost like a pseudo mix up here. Because, like, you can just, like, cancel it, right? So, like, they're not, you have to, like, sort of change the way your opponent is thinking by doing that. Because your opponent is just like, if I'm the Jago player, right? I'm playing against you. I see this, I'm like, done, I'm going in. If I just see the heavy kick, I'm like, I don't know if he's gonna cancel it, right? Because I'm not looking for him just to do this. I'm looking for him to do this. Because everyone does this. We've been sort of preconditioned to do this. Right? And so, like, even though it's -6, it's like a ghetto not -6. If that makes sense. Because you can throw it out and no one's gonna punish that. Because, like, it's risky on their end, because they're sort of betting that you're not gonna do that. Which isn't real. You can see Jago exiting block stuff for, like, a small amount of time if you really delay it. And that's also safe, it's -4, right? As opposed to -5. So, and it's like, it's definitely doable. Stand heavy kick as a hit confirm. It's 100% possible. It's just tricky, and I think a lot of people have the, like, knee-jerk reaction of, if I have two routes to something, and if they lead to the same outcome, and one is harder than the other, I'll just do the easier one. But I think, in general, that's not a good mentality to have, because I think, at least the way I always think about things, it's about, like, optimizing every single situation. And I think in terms of poking, you don't want a situation where you force your opponent to almost stop thinking, you know? Like, if I just do raw heavy kick and force a hit confirm situation for myself, that forces more thinking on his end than to me just brain dead doing that. Because if I do this, the only thing he needs to read in this specific matchup is my backdash or my not backdash. Right? Or maybe if I do, like, maybe if I do something really risky, like that, right? Then, like, okay, he has to read that, right? But, like, relatively speaking, he doesn't have to make any crazy hard decisions. But if I'm just doing a heavy kick, he does have to do that. He has to be like, oh, he didn't cancel into a normal. And I'm so much further away. It's so much harder for him to establish offense, you know? Like, look at this. I'm here. Jago can definitely poke me out at this range. Or, I'm here. The fuck is Jago gonna do? Even if he does heavy punch it, I think it'll whiff. Yeah. So, like, it's so hard for him to reestablish offense. And we're back at this sort of footsies-ish range where I'm like, I can still play this oppressive neutral. Stand heavy kick does have a late cancel window. Let me see if I can communicate that. I'm gonna try to enter in this as late as possible. It's about that, like, give or take. It's not like stupid late, but it's definitely later than like most normals in this game. Which is why it's such a good hit confirm button, because it's like not terribly difficult to hit confirm. It's 100% doable. Like, you'll miss it sometimes, of course, but it's possible. Let's go back to guard block hall. There we go. Excuse me. And I'm sort of implicitly talking about it. I should have mentioned it before, but whatever. I think, like, before you even start thinking about sort of optimizing how to play offense and the sort of footsie's neutral is to, like, learn about the matchup. Because little things change like that, you know? Like, let me think of a good example. So, like, doing one of these, right? Say, let's say even crouch, medium kick, light blade demon. That is -3 on block, so it's safe, you know? You can't really hit confirm crouch, medium kick, so like, this is a pretty safe option. Lots of Sadira players will do this. But even this is matchup specific. You know, this against Rom is shit. This is the worst thing you could ever do against Rom. Because it's -3. And he shadow command grabs you, and then you're on your ass, and you're like, damn, now I gotta take this fucked up mix-up. So it's like what I was saying earlier with this, only more exaggerated, you know? It's like, you're trying to play this offensive neutral, and then you land, then you immediately just throw it in the garbage. You're just like, I don't want it anymore. And then you get scooped, and then you're dead. But against Jago, I think this is actually fine. Because it's like, it's just a slightly more risky play than to do something like kick confirming or stand heavy kick. And it's because he can't punish it, A. So it's safe, so he has to... Can he punish it with uppercut, actually? I'm gonna assume he can't for the sake of demonstration. Right? So if I do this, it's safe. I don't think he can. I think uppercut is 3 frames startup, right? And then active on 4th frame, not 2 frames startup, and active on the 3rd frame. I think that's right. So this is fine. It is, like I said earlier, easier for him to establish offense after this. He can jab check you at this range, you know? He can hit crouch medium kick, he can hit stand medium kick, forward roundhouse, he can do a lot of stuff. So this is like a pretty solid option still. Active on 3rd. Okay, so it isn't safe in this matchup. It's safe in the matchup against... let me think of a great example. Totally safe against Spinal to do this, right? Against Spinal, this is totally a safe thing to do. Or I can even use this as an example, right? Because at this range, heavy uppercut will whip, and it's still hard for Jacob to punish. You can punish with Shadow. I'm getting negative edge, that's weird. Whatever, the point is, it's hard. The point is, in some matchups, this is totally fine. And in some matchups, this is suicide. Like against Spinal, this is pretty much fine. It's slightly riskier against Spinal because he can check with overhead, stand, heavy kick, crouch, medium kick, jab. Like, he has a lot of options to sort of stop Sadira. Excuse me. And a lot of safe ways to catch your backdash. So, it's not quite like super safe, but it's better against him than against Jago, because Jago gets a solid punish, you throw away your defense, whatever. Basically, in short, I think the way to approach, or the way I approach this sort of close quarters neutral and sort of poking, is that it'll never not be my turn. I want to at every single moment have the advantage, or at least not give my opponent a clear way to take his advantage back. In some games that's more doable than others. But I think it's especially important in offensive-based games like Killer Instinct, for example. And I do that a lot with my pressure strings as well. A lot of my pressure strings are very... they always leave me in a plus situation, or at least one where Jago can't immediately take his turn back. And again, I'm just using Jago for an example. In theory, this is like applicable to everyone. You just need to study the matchup and figure out how easy it is for them to take their advantage back. So like even, and that applies to like everything, like even, excuse me, even if I set R2 auto block, right? Mr. Hype Train was good, dude. Pretty much. This is just more of like a theoretical stream. I'm just using like KI as an example because I have the most hours into Killer Instinct and I'm more familiar with how the game works than any other game, I think, right now. So technically what I'm saying is applicable to any fighting game ever. I'm just using these as an example. But so even like offense, so like, right, you get the knockdown as steer, obviously you want to do some ambiguous cross up, whatever. You know, you want to go in. But against certain matchups, I won't even do that. Like in some situations against Rom, even though I get a safe jump against Rom, I'll just straight take the knockdown and reset like mids to full screen neutral. Because like, in some instances in that matchup, I don't want to have Rom make the right guess and then me be on defense. Because me being on defense in that matchup is the losing condition. Clearly, right? Like, because Rom loses neutral overall, I think, because of fucking this and jump medium kick. Because it hits twice, so he can't armor through it. So if he wants to win this matchup, he can't win off of just straight neutral hits. He has to win off of knocking me down and just running offense with command grabs or high damage combos, whatever. So like, I'm going to do my best to remain in control and make sure he doesn't get that lose condition. So like, even though on paper it's like, yeah, you get the knockdown and you can safe jump Rom, why wouldn't you do that? You know? It's like, that's true, but if I'm right here against Rom and I'm plus, like, I'm technically still in control, but it's risky for me in certain situations. Because if he reads like that I'm going to do jump, right? And he does the Krill shield. Not the Krill shield, but the, what is it called? The Emergence. It's fully invincible. It'll hit me clean out of the air. I land on the ground, and then I gotta play defense. All of a sudden, I'm in the losing condition I wanted to avoid the whole time, you know? Or I safe jump, and then I go for stand medium punch. Stand medium punch is +1 on block, right? And stand jab is technically, I guess, 5 frame startup, because KI frame data is weird. So this isn't a real frame trap against Rom, because he can just grab my ass out of this. So even frame trapping against Rom is risky. So I have to either make sure he doesn't read me, guess right, or I have to bait out his option if I want to get a hit. So if I have like a full life bar lead, I'm gonna do that to take the risk. Because like, it's still in my favor, I think. Because, you know, I can just do shit like this, right? And then it avoids like all of his options. So it's still like, you should still do it sometimes, but there are instances in that matchup, like if I'm close to losing and he's close to losing, right? It's neck and neck, danger zone or whatever. I'm 100% if I get the knockdown, I am running away, free. I'm just gonna take neutral. I'm gonna play confident neutral, and I'm never gonna run offense. Because by backing away, it totally eliminates the losing condition from play for me. Like, there's no way I could lose from here. So why wouldn't I do that if all I have to do is close out the round, right? If I don't need to make an insane comeback, if I have very little life to play with, if I could lose at any moment, you know, I'm just gonna reset neutral. I might do very light offense. Safe jump, backdash, you know, stuff like that. Just in case. And I think that all plays into what I was talking about earlier when I'm saying, like, and I'm just gonna keep reiterating it because I think it's so important, at least from my perspective, that you should always be in control. I always want to be in an advantageous situation for myself, and I don't want to ever sacrifice that. So like another, and that sort of comes with like how I think people should frame trap. I'm still not used to doing this 100% because it's hard. Like what I'm about to say is very challenging to optimize, but I think it is the optimal play. When it comes to structuring frame traps too, like, you know, a lot of people will just frame traps and just do random frame traps, and then they don't really have any real structure to them. They're just sort of like, stand medium punch is plus, do stand medium punch 3 times, you know. This is my frame trap right here. And like, while I don't think that's objectively a bad decision, it's just not a very structured frame trap. Mostly because it is not very useful. So if you do this as your frame trap, right? First medium punch hits. Let's say this hypothetical scenario. You're gonna do walkout, medium punch, which isn't technically a real frame trap from this range, because I believe they can just jab you out of it. Because it's 7 frames, 5 frames, plus 1, so they should be able to jab you out of medium punch at this range. So A, it's not real, which is not great, because assuming they have perfect timing, they can just hit jab and hit you out of the second medium. But what I also think it's not great for is, even though it's still relatively safe to do this, you get no reward at all. Like, you just sort of, let's say the first medium punch hits, right? Like, sick. What do you get off that? Like, you, as far as I know, you cannot hit confirm just a raw medium punch. I've tried it before, like, testing out the cancel windows, and like, unless you're like really looking for it and you're on your game and you're on some shit, it might be doable. But like, this is such a hard hit confirm for a raw medium punch, you know? And then what if the second medium punch hits? You know, you're in the same situation. They don't link into each other. So even though it's safe, there's no point in doing this. You don't get any reward at all. Unless you do like medium punch light blade demon, right? But then we're in that situation I was talking about earlier, where your goal of playing this very safe, controlling based, like, close quarters offense / neutral, like, you just fucking throw it in the trash. You immediately, if they block it anyway, you immediately just fucking chuck that shit in the garbage. And there's no reason not to block this. This is just a mid. So unless you get counter hit on this, they're gonna block it, really. Or unless they try jumping back or something, but like, this is not a hard thing to defend against. So of course they're gonna block. And then they're gonna block that, and then you play defense. That's not what you want. What I think is a better way to do things is up close. And like, this is gonna sound probably obvious, but it'll get interesting, I think, later. The way I think I should approach it. I don't want to say everyone should do it, because if it works for you, go for it. Whatever. It's just the way I think about things. Up close, I think I should always try doing jabs. Like, I'm gonna do jab. Why am I gonna do? A better example: crouch light kick twice. That's what I actually do. I rarely just do jab. So crouch light kick. Why would I do crouch light kick twice? Well, for one, crouch light kick is plus on block. So, if they block this, it's still technically my turn, which is what I want. I can still have control from here. I don't just throw it away. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, hit confirmable. So if I see that they get hit by this, you know, I go into special move, I get the combo. If I see they block it, I can take my turn back with jab. So like, no matter what the outcome is from this, I can still control my opponent. I'm still at advantage. No matter the outcome. Which makes it like a very low risk option, and I think that makes it very strong. The only real way they're beating this is like with something with invincibility. But again, that's usually pretty risky for them to do. And I'm like, I'll take that. Because if they read my crouch light kick with like, wake up, like if I get knocked down, right? And I do one of these. And they do, if Jago does wake up wind kick, it'll beat that. But wake up wind kick from Jago is very risky, it's punishable. If he does wake up uppercut, it'll beat that. Uppercut is mad punishable. So I'll take that. Because if you want to escape, you have to commit to an unsafe option. That's what I want you to do. That's my ideal outcome. If I can just force you to just do these crazy risky options all day to get out of this tight offense, then like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll get hit 18 times in a row if it means that you have to commit to those options. Because like, the risk for reward is often not in Jago's favor. Like, you would say like, oh, wake up wind kick, he gets a combo if it works, and I get a combo if it doesn't work, but Jago does more damage, so technically it's in Jago's favor. That might be an argument, but it's like, that's not technically the whole truth, because I don't have to do this. I'm gonna do meaty anything else, and it'll just beat wake up wind kick straight up, you know. So he has to specifically read a low attack, whereas uppercut he just has to read some meaty attack, you know. But wake up uppercut he gets about what 20% damage and weak Oki. But if I block it, I can get a whole range of damages, and I get very strong Oki, assuming I don't get combo broken, whatever. So like, it's, no matter how you cut it, it's in my favor here. So this makes that a strong option, I think. You know? And I think that more people should think in terms of that. Of like, but like, this is like a sort of an obvious thing, in a way, but like, because you see it all the time in Street Fighter, people do shit like this, right? And then like, it can, like, they'll do that. But it's less obvious in KI because stuff is safe, so people will do this. But that's -3. It's punishable by Jago in this matchup. And it's, it sacrifices your turn immediately. Like, you just throw your offense away. Even though it's, in quotes, safe. But it's like pseudo-safe. But I think you can apply this sort of logic to an extended pressure string as well. And it becomes very valuable, the stuff you get out of it. Especially when you start thinking in terms of counter hits as well. So like, after this, right? What can I do? I will usually hit light punch, medium punch. Why will I do this, right? Punishing Blade Demon is hard. It is hard, but it's possible, and that's part of your optimization. As a Jago player, you should punish that 100% of the time. If you fuck up that punish, it means that you're playing suboptimally. And I'm assuming optimal play, and you should always assume optimal play, I think, when it comes down to building your strategy. Because, like, if you build your strategy around suboptimal play, and then you go against someone who doesn't play suboptimally, like, you're gonna get fucking cooked. You know? If you go up against someone whose offense is so good, that they'll turn a -2 situation into you getting hit, you're never going to be -2 against them because you just keep getting hit. You know, it's almost like you're getting punished for that. Same thing, like, if you have something that's like a 1-frame punish, you're like, oh sweet, I'm going to toss this out all day. But then you get conditioned to thinking it's safe, and then you go up against a player who will punish it, and then you're like, well fuck, now I can't do that anymore. So like, it's a trick worth throwing out in a match, right? Because if you learn that they don't punish it, it's like, oh shit, so now this move is safe for me now. But if they do punish it, you should still have a strong backup plan. And I think that should be the fundamental part of your gameplay design. Like, as a player, you should structure your whole strategy around something that's very difficult to counter, or something that has like almost no counterplay at all. Because sometimes you do fall behind on the mental game, right? Sometimes you go up against someone who's just ahead of you and they're gonna beat your ass. Sometimes that just happens. So like, you want to have this like solid game to fall back on where you're like, they're reading the shit out of me and I can't stop them. I don't know what they're thinking, but they're doing stuff and it's working. So how do I counteract that? It's like, I make sure that they get minimal chances to just act freely. You know? Anyways, as I was saying, I think that is a solid pressure string. Crouch light kick, light punch, medium punch. Why do I think this is good? I think this is strong because, one, it ends with stand firm medium punch, which is +1 on block. Now, it's +1, but the key thing is that jabs will whiff here. In a lot of cases, anyway. I might be in command throw range for certain characters which have command throws comparable to jab speeds. It's sort of cutting it close. But we're speaking in context of the Jago matchup, his jab isn't going to reach this far. So +1 means a big deal at this range. You know? Because it means I can do like +1 into, not again, really. Outside of jab range. If he tries jabbing, it'll whiff. Or I can do stand medium kick, depending on what medium options he has. You know, depending on who my opponent is, that is real. If they have like slow medium attacks that'll reach that far, post. So that's like reason 1 why I think this string is good. Reason 2 I think this string is good is the first bit of it is hit confirmable. Right? Which is immediately very strong. But it leaves me in a +1 state and in range of my jab. Which means this is, in theory anyway, if I like do it with perfect timing, it's a frame trap. They can't really do shit about this. Obviously, you know, they can uppercut, but that's stupid risky. I explained that earlier. So it's like, okay. Stand medium kick with trade. It's still solid, because like... Right, so like, Jago has mediums that are... So like, this is not real in this matchup. Right, this will trade with his stand medium kick. But this is real. If you do it at, like, optimized range, right? You might be able to laser sword because of the priority system it might win. But regardless, those are subtleties that I'm going to ignore right now and just say he can't challenge it for the purpose of talking about this theory that I'm working on. If that makes sense. Like, obviously, if something's +1 in a matchup, but like your opponent has better, faster options than you at the range where you're +1, then you're not really +1. You know? Then, well, obviously, because the math doesn't work out, and then you're gonna get smoked, and you're gonna be like, but I was plus. It's like, yeah, but it wasn't real. And they knew that, but you didn't do your homework. You know? But like, if you are, like, if this was +3 on block, right? in this matchup. Like, against some characters, this is real. Like, they can't really do shit about this. And this all assumes perfect timing, which is, like, difficult. Because you sort of need to put out your button frame 1 after blocking stand medium punch. And what that means is you're reacting to stand medium punch and putting your button out at frame 1, which takes execution, but it also means you're reacting to this. Like, fast enough to where you can input it frame 1. And looking at the attack speed, that looks fucked up hard. Because I believe the way you read attack speed is it's linear, so it has 6 frames startup, then it's active for 3 frames, and then it's recovering for 11 frames. You know? Like, that's hard. It's still, like, worth it to try, but you should know that it's technically not real. Because it also means they have to react in that time, you know? That's hard. What is that, 20 frames? 20 frames. So, they're reacting in... They would have to react in 19 frames, right? Does that make sense? They have to react in 19 frames and then hit the button. Because if they react in 20 frames and then hit the button, it'll come out next frame. Right? And then they're too late already. So they're on defense reacting to your stand medium punch in 19 frames and then hitting a button with 1 frame later. You know, that is wild. That is hard to do. So, you also kind of have to factor that stuff in. Like, if a character has, like, a negative... Let's say a jab that's 0 on block, right? Let's say Sadir's jab is 0 on block. It's not actually 0 on block in a way. You know? Okay, has 4 frames of... Oh yeah, I forgot to factor in the input delay, you're right. So yeah, even factoring in the input delay, like, no human being can do that. Like, that's free. Like, dude, 20 minus 4? Goddamn, no one is reacting to that. No one. Motherfucking Goichi can't do that. That's, you would have to basically guess and reversal jab. Which is hard, right? Especially because they can do shit like that. There's like a ton of factors, but like, the point is it's hard to do. Very hard to do, like, borderline impossible hard to do. I think. So like, it's worth doing, but you should know it's not real. It's like I was talking about with like punishing. I would say it's harder than punishing like Blade Demon, because doing this is just sort of an execution test. Like, because it's not hard to react to this, you know? But it's hard to react to this and also have the execution on top of that for 1 frame gap to check this or to check this, you know? Anyway, regardless, I was talking about this string. And why I think this string is good is because I explained why the double crouch light kick is good. I think the real star of the show here is the jab. I think the jab is super important. Because A, it makes this a true frame trap. But B, it's like, alright, what happens when they get hit by jab? Like, a lesser player would be like, would do, why can't I do it? There we go. I don't know why I'm bad. A lesser player would do, what the fuck is wrong with me? A lesser player would do something like this. I'm just gonna do crouch light punch because I don't know what's wrong with me right now. A lesser player would do something like this. Because they're like, a frame trap with this, and then if they don't know it's a frame trap or they try to contest, this gives me a full combo. Right? But in the context of like a match, why would they get hit by this jab? The only reason they would get hit by this jab is because they tried to hit a button and it didn't come out, right? There's no other real reason to get hit by it there. And if that happens, you get counter hit frames. And if you get counter hit light punch, medium punch will link. It's a challenging link, but it's doable. There you go, 2 hits. And because it's 2 hits, this is hit confirmable as well. Like I said, it's hard though. This is why it's a very like theoretical discussion, because like to do this like 100% in a match is tricky. But this is like, you know, it's an easy hit confirm because you're hit confirming 2 hits.
Triple.
Right? 3, and then you get a full combo. You get this whole business, right? And then knock down, and then you get to run offense again. And that is a tricky link though. And so why would I do this over this, right? The main reason is because, like I was saying earlier, if they block this, I'm still have control here. I can still check with another medium punch. I can still do light punch, medium punch, and then walk up medium punch, you know? I can bait offensive options with movement. I can do a lot of things here. But if I do this, I can't really do anything. I'm right here, I'm in punishable range against Jago. I should put it to block actually. Where's guard? There we go. Right? Like here, what's Jago gonna do that would make me that scared, really? You could do forward heavy kick, that's shadow counterable. If I walk back a little bit, the first hit of heavy kick will whiff. I can whiff punish that with shadow recluse, heavy recluse, crouch light kick. It's a hard whiff punish, but it's doable. You know, I can do like a whole shimmy deal. I can still play in an offensive manner, in a manner of control here, right? If I do this, if I don't get punished, I'm eating a throw mix-up. I gotta eat it, or a jab, or meaty, or whatever. You know, I gotta play some hard defense. And that is not the position I want to be in. Shoutouts to LGR777 for following me on Twitch, man. Appreciate it. We growing this stream. I think we're almost at 200 followers, actually. If we haven't hit that already. So that's like the main reason I go to that more. Like, is it harder than doing jab like Blade Demon? It's way harder. This is so much harder, but it's optimal, and that's the important thing. I think when you're structuring your offense and you're thinking about how to do that, you should not be a bitch. I think that's like the #1 thing to do, is to not be a bitch. If something's hard, don't be like, it's hard though, so I'm not going to do it. It's like, no, it's hard, so you should lab it for like 4 hours for every day for a week until you get it every single time, and then you should incorporate it into your game plan, because it's optimal. And it gives you a distinct advantage over doing this. There's some, you know, like I said, against Rom, if I can't do this, and if I can only do fucking this, I'm gonna get the crap beat out of me in that matchup. You kidding me? Because like, this gives me a safe option where I can retreat, worst case scenario, if I'm thinking grab coming up, versus this where I just get command grabbed and then I die because I wanted a combo and I read a counter hit and I guessed wrong. You know? So that's like another strength of structuring your offense like that. Because it's like, I have hit confirm opportunity 1. It didn't hit, I'm plus. I have hit confirm opportunity #2 for a real frame trap. Let's say that didn't work either, right? Well, then I'm here, and no one can really establish offense, but I'm also +1, and I can still like check with options, right? I can still hit him from here. Actually, I never thought about it. This is real. Not as a cancel, but as a frame trap. It's real because of the priority system. Even though it comes out on the same speed as another stand medium punch, it'll beat every other option, right? Because if they hit on the same frame and a special has priority over normal, this should be real too. Maybe not, because it's 7 frames. But yeah, this is like so valuable. Crazy valuable. And like I was saying earlier, when I was like thinking about this, after watching a lot of like old footage from Mike Tyson, and I was like, this is interesting because he was very, because in MMA that's like sort of what it's about too. It's like lowering risk in a lot of times, or like putting your opponent in situations where it's like they just have to fucking deal with the mix. They, you know, like you fake strike to the head and then you go for like a liver push kick or whatever. You fake a wheel kick or do some shit. It's like if they fucking guess wrong, they're getting whopped. They're getting put on the ground. And that's also like, I feel like I need to incorporate that more in my game plan the more I think about it. As I was saying, like Mike Tyson specifically used a lot of movement in his offense, and I sort of do that now, but I should be doing it more. I think movement is a crazy valuable thing. So like if we go back to this whole thing, right? Let's say this hasn't worked the past 4 times I've done it, right? They haven't gotten hit by any of this. Because really, it's not that hard to defend against, you just hold down back. There's no real mix-up here. This is just a frame trap that's hit confirmable. So, maybe you learn that, right? Because you establish a pace, first of all, which is like a really important thing, establishing pace, by doing this. You just set them up to block. So now you have this rhythm. The fucking dead, 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 dead. You know? And then they get into that rhythm of blocking. Even if you check with another button afterwards, you're still in that rhythm. You know what I mean? Even if you change it up a little bit, you're still playing within the rhythm. So, let's say they, like I said, I keep cutting myself off. Let's say they block this 4 times in a row. That means that you've established the rhythm and they're playing on your rhythm if they're blocking that. They're not trying to challenge early, they're not moving early, they're not doing anything, they're just blocking. Because they know. Right? So you're like, okay, if I'm going to do it the 5th time now, it hasn't worked the previous 4 times, it's probably not going to work the 5th time. That's a reasonable assumption. This is not going to work. So what can we do about that? Well, we can use sort of the idea of like tempo and movement to create an opening very safely and remain in an offensive position the whole time. Mainly by doing crouch light kick twice, jab, and then by this point they expect the medium punch. Right? Or they block this and they expect the jab. Let's pick up after this. So they block this. They expect the jab, you're at this range. The jab is the stop sign to condition them. But once they're conditioned, you can now offset your rhythm. Which is important because if you conditioned them to this whole rhythm the whole time, they expect to know this tempo, this rhythm, that's what they're playing on. You can offset it by walking forward a bit. You take a step forward, that is the most intimidating forward step ever. And why is it intimidating, right? Well, because here, throw whiffs, right? Throw's not gonna hit. But all of a sudden you take a step forward, throw's gonna hit from there. And it's a relatively safe option to step forward here too. In the context we're talking about. I mean, they blocked this 4 times in a row. They're gonna keep blocking after this. They've done that in the past 4 times. And we're +1 here. And we have a true frame trap option with jab. So, there's no real reason for them to contest you walking forward at this moment. And it's not like they're gonna react to you walking. That's unreactable. So you take the step forward. And then you force them into a real shit situation. Because you can do, like, walk forward grab, like I mentioned earlier. And then, like, if they're holding down back like you condition them to, right? Then they eat this into a mix. If they sort of... If they do react to the fact that you're walking forward into throw range, perhaps you walk for too long and it becomes reactable, or they're looking forward, or whatever the reason may be, then they throw tech, whatever. Then they're out. But even when they throw tech, you're left at like this situation where you're neutral, so like you'll take that. A throw is a pretty low risk option, relatively speaking. But you can also bait the throw with a shimmy after this, right? You just do like forward walk, back walk for a little bit. Do one of these. You walk just briefly inside the throw range, then take a step out. Their throw whiffs. And at least in this game, very easy to see a throw whiff and punish it on reaction. You don't need to do anything preemptively. So you can just bait that real quick. You can also do crouch slide kick, walk up jab. Or like just a micro walk really. And what that does, as opposed to this, is it sort of disturbs your current rhythm, right? You see what I mean? You go from da 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 to da 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 da. It's like, it's just super like, it's just like a little minor thing to throw in that sort of offsets your opponent a bit. Because it's like super low risk. If they block this, you're still plus, you know. Because even saying close medium punch is +1 a block. You can even do crouch light kick again because you've gained this extra distance by walking up. You know, like that's so valuable. Because like it's basically just the frame trap but applied in a slightly different way. You're doing the crouch light kick and then you're walking up and then doing it again in a hit confirmable situation where afterwards you're still plus. So you're still in control. So like in a sense, in a very loose way, one might talk about this as being an infinite. You could just do this. And it's an infinite in a way. And it's an infinite in a way of like, if they want to stop this, they have to commit to a risky option, right? Sort of. They can backdash out of this. They can block the double crouch light kick and backdash. We have safe options to counter the backdash. Whatever, right? Let's talk about it in the corner. How do I reset the... whatever, I'm just gonna go over here. Because in the corner, backdashing is far more risky. And it still communicates my point that I'm trying to get across, so we're fine. Right? Like, this is scary. But it's very, very safe. Like, there's not real much threat I'm putting myself in and doing this. But like I said, it forces them to check with jab. Because if they block this and check with jab, they're going to hit me out of my forward walk. If they're smart, they'll check with a counter hit conversion, like jab, stand medium punch. I think Jago has like... I mean, he could just do crouch light kick twice, right? That's... even easier to hit confirm. So we can do that. But it's nice because, like, we almost want him to do that. And we want him to do that because even though it'll hit us and then we have to take knockdown and offense and whatever afterwards, it sort of makes our starting frame trap more viable. Because all of a sudden, now when he blocks crouch light kick, he's not certain what to do. He already blocked this 4 times in a row, and then all of a sudden we did this. You know? So he's like, damn, so now he's walking forward after crouch light kick. Which means sometimes he's going to frame trap me with a real option, and sometimes he's going to just take a step forward and put himself in a way more advantageous situation. And that's sort of what I was like thinking about when I was watching Mike Tyson fight, because I was like, he does that a lot. He just sort of like, he throws like body shots, whatever, while his opponent is guarding, and then he just takes a step in. That's all he does. But it's like so powerful to take a step in boxing, right? Because he steps in at weird angles where he just sort of steps like right in your fucking face. You know, like right in your face. Or he switches stances and steps to your side. And so then when you turn to him, you have to rotate your body, and that opens up body shots or uppercuts that he takes advantage of, right? And so if like you watch that happen in such a dominating way in a boxing match, and then you apply this to a fighting game, you're like, it works the same way. Like, you do this, you're forcing your opponent to block, you condition them with real frame traps, right? That's Mike Tyson throwing body shots and like hooks and shit, right? He just conditions them to block. He's like, I just want them to just sit there. And then he just takes a step forward. And by taking a step forward, it reestablishes his offense, and he forces his opponent to make a defensive choice. If I do this, they have to make a hard decision here. Are they going to tech throw? Are they going to check my movement? Or are they going to keep blocking? Are they going to uppercut? Are they going to backdash? Whatever. They have to do something. Right? And it's way more in my advantage. You know? It's way more in my advantage to do this. Because, like, really, if he wants to stop this, he has to check a button. But if I've conditioned him to do this, then he has to take a wild guess at the exact moment I don't do the real frame trap. And then he's gonna pick that moment to check with a jab, you know? Like, that's a crazy big gamble on his end. Or he's gonna guess with throw tech. Or he's gonna backdash and hope he backdashes out of what I'm doing. You know? It's risky. But, like, I think just walking is, like, such a strong offensive move. And in a way, it resets your offense from the beginning as well. You know, like, you do crouch light kick, you do this, whatever. But then you walk up, and then you can just do the same thing again. It's so structured. And every bit of it is hit confirmable. So if anything hits, you can explode them, in theory, right? You can just sort of frame trap them to death. And then just, you get the one hit, and you hit confirm it like a G, and you kill them for it. It's so powerful. And it's so much more effective than doing this. You know? This, if I could think, I wonder if I could think of an analogy to, like, real life fighting. Because I don't think this is strong. Even though it's, like, in quote, safe, you know? It's actually not safe against Jago, but you get my point. Like, you get reward on hit, yeah, but on block, then you have to play defense. And that's shitty. It's like, it really is just sort of like just throwing It's like throwing hooks almost. You know, like just sort of big wound up hooks. It's like, yeah, on hit you get a big reward. But like, what if they defend against that hook properly, right? Then you have to play defense. Then you have to move around them and they're controlling the pace all of a sudden. But that's not what you want. I think ideally you always want to be in control of the pace. And I think that's what made, that's what makes MMA fighters so, like, the top MMA fighters or the top boxers or whatever. That's what makes them so good, is they're always in control, you know? And so it's like, well, why do you want to be in control? You know, like, even in subtle ways, it sort of almost holds even in fighting games right now, you know? In weird ways. And in ways you wouldn't really think. Like, because this is just the way that I establish control and the way that I'm thinking about it. But if you look at, like, top players in other games, like, I'm trying to think of a great example. If you think of, like, Goichi playing Dragon Ball, right? I always feel like that man is in control. Even when he's blocking, I think he's in control. But I think it's because it's Dragon Ball and not many things in that game are just totally unreactable. But I think it's because his defense is also so good, you know? That it's like, even when you're applying pressure, Goichi's just blocking all of it and he's just waiting. He's like, yeah, you do whatever you want, man. You know? But that's like next level shit. Like, if you can figure out how to control your opponent that isn't like this, then go for it. This is just the way that I think about it. And this is the way that I think is the most effective, at least for me in this game right now. Because I'm always in control and I'm forcing my opponent to make a decision. Even doing stuff like crouch light kick, this is very strong in a lot of matchups. It's not so strong against Jago because he gets an uppercut. But against, like, let me think of a great example here. Against Shin Hisako, this is strong. Against Spinal, this is a strong option. Against a Sadira player, this is strong. And it's strong because, like, you have to react to the jump quick. But she can also do stuff like this, right? She doesn't have to just do a raw jump, or she can walk up forward more and then jump. And why that's good is because you walk forward, which threatens the throw as well, and then you jump. And since you're airborne, you know, like, you're grab invincible during pre-jump frames, which is why you can jump at immediate throw. So as long as you're holding up before they input throw, like, you're in there. You know? It's strong. But I'd never really sacrifice control in some matchups. Against Thunder, this is very risky, I think. Because if they're a good Thunder player, they'll react to that. And they react, and then they anti-air you, and then you have to take a real fucked up mix-up. And then you're playing the worst kind of defense in a 7-3 matchup, you know? That sucks. But in a lot of cases, this is strong, because, like, to walk forward, you bait defensive options. Then you can also walk within range where the cross-up can be ambiguous. On block, you're plus like 1,000,000. You know. On hit, it's easy hit confirm. And it still tests the reactions. Like, this isn't easy to blow up by any means. Jump in, jump out like Widow's Bite. and then you're back at this range where you can still walk around and play this sort of footsie game. You're not immediately on defense ever. The only time I think you should ever be on defense is when you get knocked down. Like straight up. Or you're playing a character that is committed to taking big risks. In which case you have to use movement more. Like Rom, right? Rom sort of has to take big risks eventually. He has to do command throw. I think Thunder's a better example. Thunder's a far better example. Because, like, yeah, you can poke people, whatever. But Thunder poking isn't scary until you start throwing in ankle slicer, overhead, and command throw and triple axe, right? But all of those have very strong counterplay options. It's hard to counterplay all of them. It's fucked up. But it's, like, possible to counterplay one of them. So, like, if he does overhead, it's 2 hits. So you shadow counter. You know? If he does triple axe, it's 2 to 3 hits, so you shadow counter that. Actually, fun fact against Thunder, you should always shadow counter the second hit. At least for Sadira it works. Because the light only hits twice, but even though the heavy hits 3 times, your shadow counter will come out before the 3rd hit hits. So you should always shadow counter the second hit of triple axe. Anyway, even though that's really hard. And then ankle slicer is low invincible, heavy is reactable, though, because it hits low, so you can check with this, or with this, or whatever. Like, it's hard, but it's doable. So, like, against characters like Thunder, where they have to commit to these unsafe options to make their offense, like, really scary, you know, then, they can sort of sacrifice control in that way, because it's like, it's sort of like, it's like a grappler in MMA, really. It's like, they don't want to play this game. They want to get your back on the ground, and then they can take control from there. You know? It's like, so it's worth taking bigger risks in neutral and on offense to then establish control. You know, because when you get knocked down by Thunder, it's fucking scary. The dude has ambiguous cross-ups, he has empty jump low, because, you know, empty jump throw, he can jump in and then do overhead lower throw. And then if you guess right on all of them, you have to guess again. Because if he goes low, he can go crouch light kick, tick throw, he can go crouch light kick, ankle slicer, crouch light kick, crouch light kick, crouch light kick, overhead, crouch light kick, overhead, crouch light kick twice, command grab, you know, like you're never out. And that's his control. And he always wants to be there. And because of that, it's worth taking bigger risks. You know what I mean? Am I making sense when I'm saying this? I was thinking about it for like hours last night. Thinking about like how clean you can get offense and how little things make such a big difference. You know? Like, just walking, it's just the, like, walking forward is, like, so strong in this close-up range. And it's, like, conditioning people and taking advantage of that conditioning and then baiting their options with movement is so buff. It's crazy strong. And, like, it's one of those things where it's, like, a lot of people would be like, yeah, of course you do that, idiot. But then nobody does it. And you're like, well, what the fuck? What are you doing then? Right? And then you see people who go like, oh, I'm gonna do this. You know, I'm gonna do one of these. And then all in the shadow if they block it to try to take my turn back. It's like, that's so unnecessary. You do one of these, and then you run offense from here. You do crouch light kick, walk up. You do crouch light kick, walk back, heavy kick, hit confirm. That's another one. This hits so many people. This is applicable in a lot of fighting games as well. I use this all the time in Soul Calibur 6 with Astaroth, with his 4-4-A. It hits people 100% of the time. You put yourself in a strong offensive situation, you hold back for a hot minute, which gives your opponent the illusion that it's their turn. And just as they have that realization moment of like, I'm gonna take my turn back real quick, you hit them with a heavy kick. And in this case, you hit confirm this like a G. You don't do this weak shit, because then you're on defense right away. You do this and you hit confirm it, because if it doesn't work, you're here and you can still play. You know? You can still check shit. And then it's like, what if they don't check? What if you've conditioned them in a first to 300 set, right? What if you've conditioned them to just down back forever? And walking back, it doesn't work. And there's a couple of things. One, you don't walk back anymore. Walking back only works against players who are reactive and itchy. They want that hit, right? It's against players who will check your movement. Against players who will just down back forever, you don't walk back, you walk forward and force them to do that. I hit them with this shit, right? Where it's like, if you're gonna down back forever, you're gonna block this until you die from, like, you know? Like you're just gonna block this, and then you do walk up throw. And then you force them to tech the throw by doing that 8 times in a row. And then the second they tech that throw, you've conditioned them. And then you shimmy, right? And then they're itchy again. You have to sort of make your opponent do what you want them to do. And repetition is a big part of that as well. Not many people do repetitive attacks, at least from what I've seen in Killer Instinct. Again, it's like something that's like a lot of people think is obvious. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I should do that, but nobody does, so it's important to mention. As a Sadir player, I don't do it as often as I should, and that's a habit that I'm working on right now. Where I need to just cross up like 8 times in a row. I need to do this like 8 times. And it's like, why do I do it 8 times? Because like, let's say you jump at them once, right? And they block it, and you're like, fine. And then you go into your frame trap, and then you're here. Right? But like, by doing that, you condition them that you're not going to do it again. You condition them that you're going into a frame trap. And then they'll either shadow counter the frame trap after the jump in, they're going to backdash, they're going to use movement options that get them out of there. So it's like, oh, well then just do fucking jump in and jump in again. Because you've conditioned them to use all these options that don't beat that. So then just do it again. Same with Shin Hisako's like cross-up slice. Just do that like 5 times in a row. And condition until they block it, right? Because then you've conditioned them to wake up, block cross-up immediately, and then you just hit them with a regular meaty, and then they feel like an idiot. You know? Same with like a grappling character. You should grab people like 8 times in a row. You should just grab people, and then get the knockdown forward dash and grab them again. And then grab them another time. Until you condition them to wake up jump. And then you meaty them. You know? But you don't meaty them with this. You meaty them with this. Or with this. Or an option that is safe, that you still get your turn off of, that is also easy to confirm from. That exists. You know? In a lot of fighting games that exists. Even in, I'll use Soul Calibur again as an example just because I'm comfortable with it, right? Astaroth has like a hop grab that everyone seems to love to use. He does like a sort of hop animation, and it's a low throw. But it's always negative if you do it. You can check him after this for free. And people's counter argument to that is, oh well, I can just GI, and then I'll parry their check, and then I'm on offense again. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Because by doing this sort of hop grab, you're immediately sacrificing all your control. You're immediately throwing it, and then you're gambling it all on a guard impact. What happens if a guard impact hits? You get either a guaranteed small amount of damage as this character, or you get a break attack meaty, which does like chip damage and your plus. You know, or you commit to an option that can be re-GI'd, but is still strong. Right? What do they get if they bait your GI? you die. That's what happens. You know? You get cooked. They get lethal hit, they confirm for like... A lot of characters can do 30 to 50%. Like straight up. That's a grip to just bait on sacrificing all your control on. That is so nonsensical. You should always play within the range of control. Sneerful Water. Don't know if you covered it since I just jumped in, but how do you think that applies with players that are adapting on the fly? Could you be a little bit more specific as to what you're referencing, please? I did sort of talk about how you play around adaptation, and you sort of want to condition people with real options, and then force them to block, and then once you force them to block, you force them to play itchy and play off of that. Or play more actively, I should say. Or vice versa. Against an active player that you want to condition to block, you just do real options first. Or against a reactionary player, you... like someone who's already down backing, you've realized. You don't need to condition them to do this, they're already preconditioned. So then you should go in for movement-based options. So far as playing itchy. Yeah, and I should probably clarify what I mean about that. So like when I say itchy, I just mean someone wants to hit buttons is basically what I'm saying. Or what I'm trying to say. Someone who's just like, they're just hungry for offense. They're blocking one thing and they're just checking immediately. Right? They're blocking this and they're like, I'm going for it. Versus someone who's playing reactionary, I should say, where they're gonna down back, but they're also going to react to what you're doing. So like, if someone's down backing, let's go to crouch and block off. Right, if they're doing one of these, if they're playing as Jago right now, but they're also, let's see. So like if they're playing like this, right? Then you do shimmy and bait their throw immediately. I would consider that reactionary play. Like if they're just gonna sit down back and just try to react to whatever you're doing. Because they're not really reacting to the throw, they're just reacting to you walking into throw range and they're like, oh, he's probably gonna throw then. So you walk into throw range, walk out shimmy, clip him. Or you walk in, jump, cross him with this character. You know, or you just delay your offensive walk forward slightly. You know, or you walk back, they react to you giving up your turn, you do heavy kick, hit confirm. Meanwhile, if they're playing itchy, just a regular frame trap will work, because they're not reacting, they're just trying to get their turn back. Does that sort of explain what I mean, Sneerful? You good? Do you have another question? Please let me know. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, actually, I'd love to answer them. Absolutely love to. Because I think this is so important, and this is so fundamental, and I think people should think about this stuff more. Yeah? Okay, sweet. Because, like, it's even applicable on knockdown, so if I go to... I'm just going to turn him to auto block. So, like, if I get a knockdown as Sidira, the options that I'm gonna go for depends on what type of player I'm going up against. So like and those are sort of the three categories in a way, unless I'm forgetting one that I'm working off of as well. Yeah, I see what you mean, Snowball. So like, if I get a knockdown, right? I still have counter it turned on. If I'm going up against, if I've realized they're a passive player by now, I should say that, that they're just gonna wake up and down back and then try to block overheads on reaction, right? If they're a reactionary passive player, then I'm just gonna immediately go for some jank. I'm gonna go for some cross-ups. I'm gonna be tossing one of these in there. You know, I'm gonna big fan of this one personally. Big fan of jump in, neutral jump, 100% hit right. Empty jump throw, empty jump low, whatever. I'm immediately gonna do that. Because I know they're gonna wake up block, and they're gonna play passively, and they're gonna try to react. And so like, it's a lot of like me trying to expand my ideas on what I was talking about with frame traps, but in an Oki context. So like, when I'm talking about this, and I'm like, this is hit confirmable and it's safe. That's a safe jump. You do shit like this, right? You can hit confirm that as a single hit. And then if they block it, you're plus and you can continue your offense. Right? If I'm talking about a shimmy, the version of a shimmy is jump in, neutral jump. That's the shimmy. Because it threatens empty jump throw, which is a strong option with this character. I have throw break on. Which is a strong option, because you get like a whole juggle, you know? You get a whole one of these. Then you cash that out, and you're back in the same situation, except you took 32% damage. You know, so empty jump throw is scary. It's hard to react to too. So you do jump and neutral jump to bait that. If I'm talking about like the infinite, what I was saying earlier, the pseudo, it's not really an infinite, but it's an infinite in that if they want to get out of that, they have to commit to a defensive option that's risky. They have to like check this, right? Or backdash. Sadira can OS backdash with her stand medium punch. So backdash isn't that strong of an option because you can do shit like this, right? This is probably a better example since Critch jab is +2, but you get my point. A lot of characters can OS backdash too, just again, not many people do that. And I think it's not many people do it because not many people structure their offense this way either. Most people just do shit like this. And there's no reason to OS a backdash if this is what you're doing, you know? Unless you're doing it on knockdown, in which case some people will OS backdash there. That makes sense. But so yeah, I'll do these like options where I'm trying to test their reactions with double cross-ups or medium widow's bite or like shit like this, right? Jump in like widow's bite grab, you know? If they're playing passively. If they're playing actively, right, and they're waking up, you know, uppercut, if they're waking up backdash, if they're doing shit like that, I'm gonna do this to wake up DP, or if it has no invincibility, I'm gonna safe jump it. If they're waking up backdash, that'll also lose to just like a meaty jump in, right? Or I'll be doing one of these two, or a far more safer option, like Widow's Bite beats Jago's uppercut. It just hits him out of the air, and it bounces him up, and you can hit confirm with like this, or you can hit confirm with the juggled light recluse. It's an easy juggle confirm. And I'll do options like that until they just wake up block, because this is not a hard thing to defend against. You just wake up block and you're like, oh cool, I blocked it. You know? But it forces them to block. And the second you force them to block, you're like, sick, now I get like empty jump low. And like I was saying earlier, when I'm like, you should do the same thing like 8 times in a row sometimes, because it throws off their like rhythm, right? Like if you notice like, oh, they're blocking double cross-ups all day, but the second I do cross-up low, they get hit. It's like, I'm just gonna do cross-up low like 4 times. I'm just gonna do cross-up low. I'm gonna do one of these, right? And then I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna back up, readjust, go low again, fuck it. And I'm gonna get the knockdown. And you know what? I'm gonna go low again. This time I'm gonna spend shadow, I'm gonna do light auto double flip kick. I'm gonna go low again. Like until they block it. And then the second they block it, I'm in the situation I was talking about at the very beginning of the stream, where they block this. Right? And then I have a frame trap here that's counter hit confirmable. Plus, I can check with movement. I'm always in control. I can condition them and still be in control. I will never, ideally, like theoretically speaking, I will never sacrifice control. Even if I get a slightly bigger reward by sacrificing control, by committing to a negative option in which I'm forced on defense, you know? Ideally speaking, I never want to do that. And it's because it's sort of like it's like a loop, right? I do all this real shit, I condition them, I feed off of their conditioning, I use movement to bait them into other options, I use some options to bait them into making movement on their end. So like, by doing shit like this, I'm conditioning them to check my movement. I'm like, do it, you bitch, I dare you. Because the second I do that, it makes this far more threatening. It's like, in a way, it like increases the risk for reward if they hit a button. Because like, the reward on this, if they're just down backing, isn't big at all. The reward is basically 0. No one's gonna get hit by this. But the second you start mixing it up by walking forwards, then all of a sudden everyone's gonna get hit by this because everyone's gonna try to check your movement. Any smart player, anyway. It's the way it works. And I mentioned it already, but that's what I'm talking about when I was like, when I was watching Mike Tyson fight last night, I was like, yeah, that's all he does. He just does some shit to condition you into behaving the way he wants you to behave. He switches stances and steps to your right or left or whatever. Or he steps closer, or he ducks down, or he conditions you to move in a way that opens you up, and then he just fucking kills you for it. My man lands like 4 upper. He even does the thing where I was saying like doing the same thing like 4 times in a row is strong. You can find clips of him in a boxing match where he just throws like 4 left-hand uppercuts in a row, like just one after the other, because the dude is blocking high, right? Like in a fighting game, that's what I'm saying, it's so comparable. He's blocking high in a fighting game, and my man Tyson just throwing bombs. Like left hand uppercut, just boom, right after the other, 4 in a row. So he's like, you're gonna block this. You're gonna have to drop your guard to block this, or you're gonna keep taking these uppercuts. You know? And the second they do, boom, hook. It's over. It's the same thing here. It's exactly the same thing. I'm gonna do empty jump low 4 times in a row, and I'm like, you bitch, you're gonna fucking block this. The second you start blocking this, you know, I'm gonna hit you with like double cross up. I'm gonna hit you with empty jump throw. I'm gonna hit you with meaty jumping. I'm gonna hit you with anything. You know? Empty jump throw is really the strongest, like, counterplay option. Because, like, you know? There's no real obvious tell between empty jump low and empty jump throw. They come out at the same time too, I believe. 4 frames, and this is also 4 frames. 5 frames, I'm sorry. I didn't know that actually. So 1 frame difference. Right? So like, you're not reacting to that. It's exactly the same thing. But it's safe too. Like when Tyson is throwing these uppercut bombs, he's safe with it. He throws 3 of them, right? But what if like, if the first one doesn't land, he really doesn't lose that much. He opens up, if he throws with his left hand, he opens up his left guard a bit. But it's like, what the fuck are they gonna do about that? They're gonna block and then immediately challenge him before he can guard again? Like, he's still safe doing this. It's exactly the same thing. You know? And hit confirms are a big part of this. Like, if you can't hit confirm this, like, you can't use this whole theory. Same with counter hit confirms. Like off of jab and medium punch. If you can't hit confirm that, you're done. Same thing with the... You can actually confirm raw... Did I change that to random ID? Raw stand medium punch is linkable to shatter with C6 hits. That is not a hard confirm. It takes some awareness to do, because you have to be like scouting it, you know? You have to be like doing walk back medium punch or walk forward medium punch and being like, this might counter hit. And then seeing the counter hit flash and then shadow recluse. It's 100% doable, but it's tricky. But just because something's tricky doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You know, and I think that's the way everyone should at least start out their theory of offense, of like being in control and using loops like this, like I was talking about, where you get the knockdown and then you do empty jump low and you're like, oh, well, empty jump low twice is hit confirmable on plus, you know? Double cross up is hit confirmable on block on plus. It's like, it's never not my turn here, unless they take that shit away from me. And I want them to do that because it's risky for them to do that. So I want to force them to do it and then kill them for it later on. And all of this is matchup specific. I think before you even start thinking about offense like this, you have to lab matchups. Which is also something I don't think people do enough. I think labbing options in matchups is like one of the most important things about fighting games, and not many people do it. You know? Like against, in the Hisako matchup, right? Hisako has air on Ryo-san against Sadira. And that's a very strong option from Hisako, because it lifts her higher up, and my anti-airs will just whiff if she does that. So like, someone might say, oh, Sadira can't anti-air Hisako, because if she baits the anti-air, she gets a full combo. That's brutal. What they don't know is that you shouldn't anti-air in that matchup anyway. You should air-to-air with jump light punch, because it beats that clean, and you still get a full combo, right? If I set this man to jump, where is jump? If I set this man to jump and I air-to-air, you know, I still get a whole juggle. And if I have a bar and meter, I can still cash that shit out. You know, 32% and a knockdown. You know, like, it's valuable. And oh, I put that dark core in my pad. And some options are better against, like, control means different things in different matchups as well. Like I was saying against Rom, I don't want to do big pressure strings like this. And it's like why? Well, because I can control the neutral better. My control isn't here in that Rom matchup, it's out here. So like, even if I get the knockdown, a lot of the times I'll just back off anyway. Because here I can control the pace of the match with Heavy Widow's Bite. If he tries to run it, I can jump in. I can shimmy his anti-air in the air. I'm using all the same principles up close, just further away. You know, like up close I bait the defensive option of throw tech with shimmy. Here I bait the defensive option of anti-air with like an air shimmy. Right? It's the same thing. Obviously not every character can double jump, but every character has different tools, right? And the different tools sort of you can use in the same context. Like, this is my stop sign. This is I don't want you to approach ever. That is my heavy kick. On hit, I get a big reward. I don't really, except I don't want you to block Heavy Widow's Bite. I want it to whiff in front of you. Because you can't whip punish this. The fuck are you gonna do about that? You know? But it's just to stop you from moving. It's the same thing with heavy kick. If you're holding forward, or if you're doing a lot of this shit within range of my heavy kick, like, I'm gonna hit you with one of these. And then I'm gonna hit confirm it. It's a very low risk option. Same thing with this. Exact same thing. You know, the only counter, I shouldn't say counterplay, but like, the only other example is like, when you start, I shouldn't say the other example. The only counter argument I should say to what I'm saying is in the context of hard reads. So like, Heavy Blade Demon is a strong option in neutral for Sadira. Like, why is it strong? Well, because one, it's fucking -5 on block. That's crazy for how far this goes. You know? Number two, it gives me a full combo and hit. Because of the priority system, it'll beat normals clean. It's low invincible. It's good. And this is, you know, if I have a hard read, like, I'm doing shit like this to catch the normals and buffering medium auto double after, right? Or I'm doing this, or I'm doing one of these. And then they start realizing that, and then they're walking forward. You know, because really walking forward in neutral against Sadira is strong from like this range. So I'm like, well, what the hell am I gonna do about that? I can do like this, or this one, or jump and air shimmy, right? But that doesn't really accomplish much. But as a hard check to you walking forward, or as a hard check to big buttons like Heavy Blade Demon, like it's risky, right? Because in some matchups, it's just straight a bad idea. But like, it doesn't even, oh, my start button isn't working right now, of course. But like on block, some characters can punish that, you know, because it's -5. You know? You can punish that with a shadow move a lot of the times. You know, that is 4-frame startup. So this is -5, so if Sadira blocks Heavy Blade Demon, she gets this as a punish. You know? But it's still, like, worth it as a conditioning tool sometimes. Because if they're looking for Heavy Blade Demon from this far, then you can open them up more with, like, things like this, right? Or Heavy Widow's Bite, or Light Recluse. Because you're still focusing on the control aspect. You just have to sort of... And this is a weakness of the character in that she doesn't really have strong, grounded, mid to full screen options, except for this, you know? But this, you sacrifice your turn doing that. But it's still worth it in the long run because you sacrifice short-term control versus long-term control, you know? What's up, oh, what the fuck is that? Flame? Alright, I got this. Flame, Rick, MDQ, I got it. What's going on, man? I'm not so much teaching how to Sadira, I've just been thinking about how to properly structure offense and offensive neutral, like, all night. So, I wanted to just, like, get it out of my system and make a Twitch stream about it, really. Because I feel like nobody structures offense this way. Like, very few people have I fought in any fighting games that does this. Like, this is true. I feel like what, a lot of what I said is, like, almost obvious, right? This should be obvious to a lot of people. Should hear this and go, yeah, of course. You know? But, like, no one fucking does it. Which is, like, it's like, what? And then you go up against some players and you blow them up and they go, wow, you're really strong. It's like, dude, I'm just like, because I'm not an idiot. Look, which isn't to say that people who don't play this way are idiots. It's just like, I feel like people need to exercise this more. It's a strong option. I've mentioned a couple Sadira specific things in terms of like how I would go about, because I'm using her as an example because she is my main character, right? And like, so if you want, you should probably look at the VOD when I'm done, actually, because it's valuable. But unless, I'm trying to think, I think that's all I really wanted to say was like how important I think control is. And even again there, and like the context of control and like optimizing win and lose conditions. Like I mentioned earlier with against Rom and Thunder. The lose condition is when I get knocked down, so sometimes I won't even go on offense because then the lose condition become, like here, I can lose against Rom, but out here I can't, you know? His win condition doesn't exist at this range, but up here, up close it does, so why would I go up close? You know, like, in some instances it's worth it because I can at least safe jump him. So I still have some degree of mix-ups, but if he makes, I'm turning off counter hit, that's mad annoying. But if he has like a correct guess or a right read or whatever, and he anti-airs me, or he checks my movement, and then I get knocked down, I could lose. I could lose the entire game against Rom like that. You know? He gets one counter breaker, pops instinct, I'm done. I lost. You know? He reads my backdash. That's a grip of damage I gotta take, and the following mix-up. So, I'll just fucking go back to neutral. Just do one of these. Do some of this. One of these if I'm cheeky. This is a super good option, by the way. Which is also something people need to do. This is a specifically Killer Instinct thing, though. Is buffering safe openers in neutral because of the priority system. So if Jago, I'm gonna come up with a great example, right? Jago does that. Hit the playback. Like, the hell am I gonna? What am I gonna do about that? You know, if I'm, that's so hard to hit. But if I hit like Recluse, it just clips his leg free. Like, I have to read when he's gonna do that, but like, because of the priority system that works. People need to do that more in this game, I think. Just shit like this. Not every character I'd make can do it. Jago can do it with like laser sword. And it is with punishable on reaction. It's hard to with punish this, but it's doable. Like, you can look at the attack speed count, right? Because that's on whiff. 6 frames startup, 4 frames active, 21 frames of recovery. So, if they're looking for it, with punish at this range with like shadow wind kick from Jago, right? It's doable. But it's still worth it to try every now and then. Because again, of what I said earlier, the second they react to that, you know that they're looking for your options and they're trying to whiff punish them on reaction. They're playing reactively. You know? So, you've in a sense conditioned them already without even doing anything. And the second they do that, you can use your movement more. Like I said up close, right? You condition them to play reactively, and then you bait them with movement. You know, and you condition them to do that initially with movement as well. Because if they want to stop you, they have to react to what you're doing and actively stop you. It's the same with this, really. If they want to stop this, you have to look for it, react to it with punish. The second they do that, you walk up with medium punch and you counter hit them from that, or stand heavy kick, right? Or walk up and like shimmy mid-screen, just to get up in their face, just to close distance. You know? It's just so valuable, just like movement and conditioning. And making sure you never sacrifice control, like just little things like that. It's just so valuable, man. It's so important. In every single fighting game. Every single one. Even, talking about, and that sort of in a way comes into play when I talk about like managing people's mental stack, right? So like if I have 2 options, right? If I do like stand medium punch and crouch light kick, let's say crouch light punch, yeah, both are a fine media option, really. They're both active for 2 frames. Right? They're both plus on block. And I think, but Crouch Light Punch is faster. And it's 1 more frame plus on block. So you get better frame traps from it. But I think you should do both regardless. Because it forces your opponent to realize multiple offensive options. Even though they both basically do the same thing and one is just objectively better than the other. You know, they even both have comparable pushback. And it's mostly because of the way, like, managing tells works. You know, so, like, if you want to land a throw, you might force block with crouch light punch and tick throw and grab. Right, this works. If I go to stand and then guard block all. Right? Do one of these. This definitely works. right? It's valuable. Stand close, medium punch also works. And so the tell might be to them, oh, if they tick throw with crouch light punch, right? Then they're gonna, after I block crouch light punch, I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna backdash or I'm gonna tech throw. Right? You've put that thought into their brain by doing this X amount of times, however long it takes them to realize that that's what you do. But the tell to them isn't they do one attack and tick throw maybe. The tell is, oh, they do crouch light punch and tick throw. In which case you do stand medium punch and tick throw. You know, just because like that extra little like... It does the same thing on paper, but mentally it does two very different things. Because now you've communicated to them, oh, they don't do crouch jab throw, they do meaty attack throw. You know? And that's different. And it's different in your advantage. Because, like, now they're sort of always looking for throw. They're not looking for crouch jab throw. They're looking for plus on block button throw. And that's valuable. Because it means anytime you have that thought, like, oh, they're probably going to defend against throw, you have that shimmy opportunity in far more situations now. You know, you want that. You want them to be thinking about more things, and you want them to be looking out for more things. If you just cycle between like 3 options, right? That's not hard to defend against. Even in neutral, right? If your neutral as Sidira is jump in, is stand heavy kick, or neutral jump, right? This is not that hard to defend against this Jago. Because you see neutral jump, you're like, I'm not going to do anything. You see forward jump, you're going to anti-air. And if you see stand heavy kick, you're just going to block it, right? So you basically block, you walk back and forth, you react to this. Because like really what you're doing here is you're just reacting to jump in versus empty jump, right? So you're just sort of scouting that option. And then so like to defend against that, to check that a neutral isn't that hard. But then from the offensive player's perspective, they should throw in as many options as they can, realistically. Even if some of them aren't as good as the other ones, because it's like, from the defender's perspective, then they have to keep track of like way more things. And in a way that sort of shortens their reaction time. Because like, the way top players react to things really quickly is they just scout one option. So like, if, oh, my start button is all screwy again. If, whoops, I'm gonna record. If in Street Fighter, right, you see someone throw a fireball, right, and then they react like crazy fast and they super it or whatever, right? Like, it's because they're playing this neutral, right? And they're just faking options because they know that the other person is just scouting for the fireball the whole time. They're just out here and they're looking for the fireball. And the second they see the fireball, they're gonna kill them for it. You know? The second. None of this matters. They're not reacting to any of these whiffs. Because they don't care. They're just looking for this. And so, the proper thing the other person should do is not with buttons and test their reactions. I mean, like, do that sometimes, yeah, of course, because it's worth it. If the reactions are not on point, right? And they try to react to a fireball, and they don't react properly, and you throw it a jab, they're super whiffs, and you punish them for it. Right? But the real way to do it is just to walk forward. Just to take that space back. Because, like, if they're looking for this, by walking forward, you force them to not look for the fireball anymore. Because, like, if they want to stop you from doing this, they now have to immediately look for your movement. And they have to check you for walking forward. And that's when things like shimmying and whiff punishing comes in, right? Or you do risky footsie buttons that are whiff punishable normally. But if they're scouting for this fireball, then they're not going to be able to whiff punish it as easily, right? Or you jump, which is risky in a lot of games, but it communicates the point of like, you should use as many neutral options as you can, because like, if you're just scouting for one of them, you're gonna get blown out by all of the other ones. What's going on, Code? Yeah, you should 100% watch this from the beginning. I think I've said a lot of things that you would really benefit from. And even this, you don't see a lot of players doing. You see a lot of players playing this fireball game, and then they just start doing shit like this. But I don't think that accomplishes anything. I think just throwing out these isn't deterring the person from scouting the fireball. If you want your fireball back, you have to take it back from them. So you have to walk up and force them to not look for the fireball. Here you force them to look for your movement option, right? And I'm exaggerating everything for communication purposes, but you don't even have to walk for long at high level play, because people are so good at flipping through the things they're reacting for, like top players, right? If you throw fireball at this range, every top player ever who can punish fireball from this range is gonna scout fireball. That's what you're gonna do immediately. The second you start walking back, they're looking for fireball here. The moment you step back, if they can punish it from this far, obviously. Like Aghanos v Jago, if I'm playing Aghanos, right, the second I see a Jago player walking back, I'm scouting for fireball, because it's the only threatening option they have. But if they start shimmying like this, at this range, I'm like, fuck. Because now I want to check with sweep or stand fierce or stand medium punch, right? I'm not immediately scouting for fireball anymore. I'm flipping between through checking their movement and scouting their fireball, which means there's moments in that mental cycle where they can throw fireball and check me for it, because it's hard to react to. You know? It's like using all of these principles. It's like all the same principle of like maintaining control and keeping that control, but just using like different tools to accomplish the same thing. And it's like managing mental stack comes with that. You know? Because then all of a sudden you don't throw like 4 fireball. You don't throw fireballs for like a whole like 3 rounds, right? And you can watch like any top Street Fighter. You watch Daigo play, right? And he'll do shit like this. Where like he's like playing this footsie reigns, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna throw like 8 fireballs in a row. I'm just gonna do this. Because it's like you're focusing on this close quarters footsie game this whole fucking time. Because it's Daigo, right? You're like, fuck. His footsie game is so good. I have to try to whiff punish all this shit. It's hard. And then he just throws like 8 fireballs. Because he forces you. He's like, I know you're focusing so hard on this neutral game, on this close quarter whiff punish footsie game. I know you're just gonna take all these fireballs. You're not gonna read a one of them with a jump. Not a one. You're just gonna take all of these. And they do, because it's hard. And then he just never throws them ever in. He'll just play footsies forever now. Because then you got hit with enough fireballs where you're like, fuck, now I have to scout fireball too and try to figure out when he's gonna throw a fireball. And then you eat anti-air uppercut like 3 times and you're like, fuck. You know? Like, that's part of the whole fireball game. I'm bad at the fireball game. But it's because I don't play characters with fireballs. But it's the same principles at play. It's the same exact thing that I'm talking about. Like, to a T. When I was saying earlier, like, managing, like, real frame traps, right? I don't know what Jago has. Like, crouch, stand, media punch? Okay, stand, media punch. Right? Like, shit like that. Right, with Jago. And then, like, playing this. And then I'm like, I'm just gonna throw, like, 4 fireballs. Because fireball is, in a way, like Sadira's heavy kick. You know? This is hit confirmable. If I can pause. Oh, no, I can't because I'm recording Jago. But the point is, you can throw fireball, react to it hitting, and like cancel into shadow, into shadow win kick. This is doable. I wonder if you can card cancel this range. Hold on. Does it still work? Did they take this out? Ah, it still works. Okay. This is pretty pointless, but like, it's sick. There we go.
Monster combo!
You know, like, it's possible to hit confirm that. Same with when I was talking about my pause button works. I need to solder this eventually, but whatever. I want to wait until I get some money in so I can remod my whole arcade stick setup. But money's tight right now, so I'm gonna have to wait on that. I'm paused with my other controller. Fuck. Pause please, there we go. Like, Fireball's the same as this. It's super safe. You know, like, once you condition people, right, obviously. It's hit confirmable. If they block it, you're still within control. You're still there. You know, you're still in it to win it. But that's, I've been talking for like 2 hours about this shit now. But I can't think of anything else I really wanted to talk about. Like, because, this is just, this isn't really like 100% of all offense theory, right? But this is just this stuff that I was thinking about, and I just wanted to get off my chest and be like, alright, this is like how I think about building my offense. This is like the starting steps to building offense. How I approach it anyway. So unless anyone has any questions about anything I said, I'll cut it here. And I'll probably upload the VOD to YouTube later. Just for convenience's sake. Just the whole thing unedited because I'm lazy. I'll just wait for a moment. Let the chat get caught up and you know how it is. I mean, it's worth mentioning it, Flamer. And if I already mentioned it, I'll give you like a quick recap. And like I said, I'll upload the VOD and shit later, so like... I see what you're saying. So you're asking about, there's an offensive way, or an effective way, sorry, to use this. This is called web clink. This is tricky, but it's also a very specific, to Sadira thing. I'm talking more about just general theory, which is applicable, hopefully. I structured it in a way that's applicable to every fighting game. So, like, actually, this will be a good active example, right? So, if we take about what I was talking about, where I say I want to minimize risk and I want to always be in control. I want every situation I want in to end with me being in control at the worst case scenario, and I want to confirm off of anything. You know? That's like the ideal axioms. So, like, what does this do for me? How does this give me control? I will occasionally use this as a full screen check, as a hard read. Specifically in this matchup as well. If I'm this far away and I read a fireball, which is likely that Jago's gonna throw a fireball, because what else is he gonna do from this range, you know? And there's no real risk, because, like, you can't react to fireball with Shadow Blade Demon from that far. To react to fireball with Shadow Blade Demon, you actually have to be very close, because it travels horizontally quite slow. Let me think. So, that's 0 frames post flash. I did not know that. That's kind of sick. So, what this is useful for, right? Is that checking movement options from full screen is what I use it for occasionally, but that's more of a hard read tool than anything else. It's useful in some setups, like I believe if we do like shit like that. What is it? It's like if you do this and forward dash. There's like a way to get a safe jump, I forget what it is. something like that. And that's safe jumps like even thunder stuff. But I just manually time my safe jumps anyway. It's useful in some small scenarios as a cross-up, but it's not overall very useful. Mostly because, like, if I do this, it forces me into a defensive position immediately. If I do this, the second they see the animation, which is quite obvious. It's a mix-up of, am I going to do heavy kick, or am I going to do medium widow's bite? And I don't want to be in that position because it sacrifices my control of the situation. The control immediately falls in on a two-way interaction here of what option are they going to do? Or are they going to air me? Do they have an option that beats both the medium widow's bite and the heavy kick, you know? Or the stand fierce or whatever. And it has landing recovery too, so it doesn't really meet the axioms that I'm looking for when I look for strong offensive options or strong neutral options. In that it's high risk and it doesn't give me any degree of control ever. Because it's not like this is hard to react to. You can be scouting for other options and you're like, oh, she did web cling, I can punish that. You know, at high level, of course. Like, obviously, if you go against some scrub who's just, like, doing this shit, like, just hitting buttons, like, yeah, it's gonna work against him, but he doesn't know how to play the game yet, you know? Or they're not trained yet, you know? So I wouldn't worry about it that much. Try to normal hit wall and back like a reset combo. I don't really... The closest way I could think of in my years of playing this, there's a couple of like super subtle situations where this move is very interesting. And this is not general anymore, this is very specifically Sadira. And it's off of this situation, which is ghetto as fuck. Because it causes some weird shit to happen. So if I go to guard and I hit auto block, where's auto block? Right? Whoops. Blinkers become blockable this way, and so do enders. Oh, I have, but hold on, I have to build up the emitter. I forgot. Right? So that's weird. That shit is ghetto. It's useful in Instinct a little bit, because like you can do like weird shit like that, right? And then like reset. You know, whatever. But it's also not terrible as TK motion from mid to full screen like this. Because, like, it's still difficult to check, and it's low risk. And it's, like, pretty funky. You do get extra landing recovery if you don't use a normal, so if you use, like, a medium bite, or a light, sorry, you have extra landing recovery. See? If I just do it raw. Well, let me try jumping to better communicate this. So I can jump pretty soon after. There's a bit of landing recovery, but I can jump. If I do this, I jump way later, right? It's the same thing with heavy. Whoops. Same thing with heavy. So the second I hit the ground, I can jump right after, pretty much. But if I do this, it takes me a minute. But, like, it's not that bad. It's like... but it just doesn't really do anything. If you want to hit a button in neutral, that's really low risk. Maybe make your opponent think about something else. This is fine. It just doesn't really force your opponent to think about much. Because the only way it's threatening is if it's done really high, and your opponent doesn't actively need to think about that. They just need to know the matchup, basically. Like, there's some characters like Thunder. Thunder doesn't give a shit about this move. He gets uppercut guaranteed every single time. Even from low ranges, he gets guaranteed uppercut, so it's literally pointless to ever do against him. As a reset, like something like this, it's not very strong either. Like, why would I do this, right? When I could just do this. They're basically the same thing, except one of them is way easier to react to. Like, you might think like, oh, I could do something like, something like, let me think, like a whiff jab crouch medium kick, you know? Maybe medium. Something like that, you know? But like, that's not very good. It's just not that threatening, you know? Versus all of her standard options. What's up, Soundy? I'm so sorry, Soundy, but you may have watched that 50-second Fortnite ad for nothing. I'm just pretty much taking questions now. I'm done my whole, like, spiel. But I'll be uploading the VOD later on YouTube, and it'll be available on Twitch. Yeah, like I said, I'm just pretty much taking questions. I'm done talking about the stuff I wanted to talk about. So if no one has any further questions, I'll just cut it here. Alright, let's see. Alright, well, thanks guys for showing up. I'll be streaming again more frequently. Ryan N has subscribed to my YouTube channel. I bet that's code. Thank you, code. I'll be streaming more often, so I'll be streaming KI specifically more often. Mostly because streaming Soul Calibur online is a nightmare, because the online is not very good. In terms of netcode, anyway. But yeah, so if you guys want to catch that, feel free to subscribe. Thank you, Flamer, for the follow on Twitch. Appreciate that one, buddy. This is the shilling portion of the stream now, where I get everyone to follow me on everything. Alright, well, I will catch you guys later.